We have been discussing about the growth of ice crystals in the cold cloud. Is the screen clearly visible to all of you? Okay. So yesterday we discussed about this schematic diagram which illustrates the development of ice in small cumulus clouds. Okay. And as we discussed yesterday, in this figure, we have got a small cumuliform cloud and a large cumuliform cloud. Okay, this cloud has a horizontal dimension less than 3 km in size, whereas this one has greater than 3 km in size. Okay, this is just an individual cumulus cloud, and you may be knowing that in reality, often when the atmosphere is disturbed, then many such convective clouds are clustered together and which can have horizontal scale for several kilometers. Like you must have studied, I heard, or I hope that you have heard about the MCS. Have you heard about the MCS? Mesoscale convective complexes. Have you heard about that? Yes or no? Or
No,
maybe
sir.
no, not
No,
yet.
sir. Sir.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, many times during the summer season, especially in the pre-monsoon season, as well as during the monsoon season, many such clouds are clustered together. Okay, and they extend their horizontal dimension extends up to several tens of kilometers, sometimes even 100 kilometers. Okay, such clouds are or cloud systems are called the mesoscale convective systems. Okay, in which case, although individual cumuliform clouds may have their dimension of about a few kilometers, because the typical standard scale, horizontal scale of a single cumulus cloud is supposed to be about 1 kilometer. Okay, and its lifetime is supposed to be about 1 hour. Okay, that is the typical time scale and the horizontal scale of a cumulus cloud. Okay, but under some circumstances when the atmosphere is very, very unstable, there is a large scale convergence of moisture and wind, and in such cases, and there is also suppose a low pressure area, in that case, many such clouds form, okay, and they cluster together, and they're called the mesoscale convective systems or mesoscale convective complexes. All right. In such kind of complexes or systems, uh, there may be a spectrum of clouds. Okay, a spectrum of the clouds in the sense that the horizontal scale of the clouds in that mesoscale convective complexes can range from small cumuli to very large cumulis. All right, some of them can be in the just developing stage. Some of them can be in a matured stage, and others can be in the dissipating stage. Right. So all three stages, the clouds can be present in a mesoscale convective systems. Okay, and such systems when they start propagating, depending upon the uh, synoptic situation. You know the synoptic situation, right? Synoptic patterns. You must have heard about this terminology. Have you heard about synoptic scale? Yes or no? Everybody is
Yes,
silent.
sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir. Synoptics.
correct. Yeah. So under favorable synoptic conditions, such cloud clusters they can start propagating as a square line, right? A square line. I'm sure you must have heard about the square lines, right? Square lines, which gives a lot of strong winds, thunderstorms, strong precipitation, etc. Okay, nor'westers are also a form of square lines. You must have heard about the nor'westers, especially which occurs so frequently in the eastern and northeastern part of India during the pre-monsoon season. Okay, also including Bangladesh, right? The northwesters. Okay, and such systems can propagate for several hours, and their lifetime can also extend for several hours because now when one cloud dies or dissipates, it produces environment favorable for the formation of another cloud. Okay, and so on. So the system continuously keeps growing. New clouds keeps growing and older clouds keeps dissipating, and the entire system propagates depending upon the wind pattern synoptic situation. And such systems are also called the square lines. So in such systems, the horizontal scale can be several hundred kilometers, more than 100 kilometers even. And their lifetime can also be several hours rather than just 1 hour for a individual cloud. Okay, it can have several hours. And at times, the system can be so strong or intense that I've seen many such systems. I remember one such systems which originated somewhere in Rajasthan, near the Bikaner area, and then started propagating towards east. Then it reached our Delhi and caused very strong winds, a lot of damage caused by the strong wind forces. And then it further propagated towards UP, and then further towards Bihar, and then further towards West Bengal, and eventually it dissipated over Odisha. Okay, and the entire system's lifetime, if we count from the very beginning to the end, it was more than a day. Okay, so that was because it was a square line which traveled from almost Rajasthan to West Bengal and Odisha in more than 24 hours time. And as I said, in such systems, clouds keep developing, growing in mature state, and also eventually dissipating. Okay, so I mean in this diagram which you have seen yesterday also, what is illustrated is the formation or development of ice particles in a small cumuli having dimension about less than 3 kilometer and more than 3 kilometers. Okay, the base temperature of these clouds are about 0 to 11, 0 to minus 11 degrees centigrade. Okay, I mean it may be 11 degrees centigrade, 0 to 11, and this is the time which is shown as it grows. Okay, in the 10 minutes after its formation, this has extended like a cumulus tower. Okay, it has become like a tower, and in the next 5 minutes, now the precipitation has developed, or the ice crystals have developed in size, and the droplets have their dimension more than about 25 micron size. Okay, and the tops have reached up to minus 5 to minus 20 degrees centigrade. Okay, and this rapid development is because of the ice enhancement process. Okay, the frozen drizzle drops and or a small grapple. We talked about the grapple yesterday. Isolated single and irregular ice crystals about 0.1 to 20 per liter. Okay, this is a number per liter. Okay, and similarly, in this diagram, which shows a slightly larger cumulus cloud, you can see again in 10 minutes how it has grown. Okay, in the next 10 minutes further grown, and next 20 minutes, now it started precipitating. Okay, and what it shows is that now the strong, large-sized falling ice particles from the anvil of this cloud. Okay, from the anvil of this cloud, and these large ice particles are formed because of the intense aggregation and fallout of ice crystals. Okay, the concentrations of ice particles begin to decline, and liquid water is depleted as it falls down to the ground. Okay, and also from the outer periphery of this anvil, now as you can see, they're at very high level. Okay, and they're all cirrus. Okay, so sometimes even precipitation in the form of virga. Okay, we talked about virga yesterday. also occurs. But this precipitation called virga, they are not able to reach ground because they get evaporated in the dry atmosphere, which is there in the way. Okay, so this situation occurs in the matured cumulus cloud, in which case there is a super ice enhancement. Okay, because of which there is explosive formation about 10 to hundreds ice particles per liter of regular and irregular crystals. Okay, and the liquid water contained in such clouds is can be more than 0.5 grams per cubic meter. Okay, so this is how the ice crystals enhance it. Okay, the cloud and formation of the precipitation. Okay, now let's talk something little bit more in detail about the growth of ice particles in the cloud. Okay, the growth of ice particles in the cloud occurs by three processes. Okay, it occurs by three processes. One is the growth from the vapor phase. Okay, as we discussed earlier in the classes, in earlier classes, that just like the sublimation, now from directly from solid to vapor can occur, form, right? Similarly, the opposite to that or the reverse process to that also can occur. That means from water vapor, which is in a very super cool state, now the ice can directly form without going through the solid phase. Okay, so the ice crystals can grow because of that, and in such cases we call no the deposition of ice because of the growth from the vapor phase. All right. So in a mixed cloud dominated by supercooled droplets, the air is close to saturated with respect to liquid water and is therefore supersaturated with respect to ice. Okay, as you might have studied earlier, and we had, I think, talked about this earlier, that the saturation vapor pressure over liquid water is greater than the saturation vapor pressure over ice. Okay, so that means even at a slight supersaturation, ice can quickly form. Ice can quickly form, although the liquid water may not be forming or converting, because the saturation vapor pressure of our liquid water is much higher than compared to our the ice. Okay, so for example, air is saturated with respect to liquid water at 10 degrees centigrade. Let us say is supersaturated with respect to ice by 10%. You get the point? Say at 10 degrees centigrade temperature, if the air is saturated with respect to liquid water, it will be supersaturated by 10% with respect to ice. And at 20 degrees centigrade temperature, it is supersaturated by 21%. Okay. So in such situations, it becomes very conducive for the formation of the ice particles. Okay, these values are much greater than the supersaturations of cloudy air with respect to liquid water, which really rarely exceeds 1%. Okay, generally, as we were talking about the homogeneous nucleation and the heterogeneous nucleation, we're talking that now generally for the homogeneous nucleation to occur, it requires supersaturation by several percent above the saturation value. Like if the saturation value is 100%, now for the homogeneous nucleation, it requires sometimes 110, 112% supersaturation before the formation of the water droplets. Okay, so it rarely exceeds 1%. Whereas when there is a presence of the condensation nuclei, scission, as we discussed earlier, then the formation of the water droplets can occur even at a lesser supersaturation. So, in general, no, the supersaturation rarely exceeds 1%. Okay. Consequently, in mixed clouds, right, which is dominated by supercooled water droplets, in which the cloudy air is close to water saturation, ice particles will grow from the vapor phase much more rapidly than the droplets, because for that supersaturation, or for that saturation, it is supersaturated with respect to ice, but not with respect to the liquid water. So ice will grow faster than compared to the water droplets. Okay. In fact, if a growing ice particle lowers the vapor pressure in its vicinity below water saturation, then the adjacent droplets will evaporate. Okay, the adjacent droplets will evaporate because it is losing the vapor. All right, uh, and ice crystals are forming over there. Now, this is an example of the formation of an ice crystal. Okay, this is an example of formation of an ice crystal. All right, and this is obtained or produced in a laboratory experiment. Okay, you might have heard about there are cloud chambers. Okay, people do the experiments in the cloud microphysics in the cloud chambers in the laboratory. Okay, I mean, one thing is of course the real atmosphere which nobody can replicate, but people try to imitate uh, and try to study the cloud microphysical parameters or the microphysical structure of the clouds in the laboratory also. And now in such cases, we have to have a so-called cloud chamber. Okay, as you might have heard about the fluid dynamics. In fluid dynamics, people have about the wind tunnels. The fluid dynamics laboratory consists of wind tunnels in which they can generate the wind speeds at different levels and generate the turbulence to study the fluid dynamics. Similarly, in the cloud physics, people have people design the cloud chambers to study the cloud biological parameters. In India, I should say, the oldest one is at IITM Pune. Okay, the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, Pune, has the oldest cloud chamber. Okay, I mean they've got a full-fledged laboratory of cloud physics. Okay, both now inside the lab as well as outside the lab, that is in the open air. You might have heard about, I don't know whether you have heard about or been to Maharashtra. There is a place called Mahabaleshwar. Have you heard about Mahabaleshwar? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mahabaleshwar is in the west coast of India in Maharashtra. And there the IITM has the open air laboratory for studying the tropical cloud physics, physics of the tropical clouds. And also in Pune, they've got the uh, cloud physics laboratory, the cloud chambers, where they study the development of these water droplets and also the formation of ice crystals, etc. The electrification of clouds, etc. That we are going to discuss in the next week. All those things, they study in the laboratory. All right. So this diagram is showing the formation of ice crystals in a controlled environment in a cloud chamber, in a laboratory experiment. Okay. So cumulus turrets containing relatively large ice particles often have ill-defined fuzzy boundaries. Okay, whereas turrets containing only small droplets have well-defined sharper boundaries, particularly if the cloud is growing. Okay, for example, let's see this cloud. You must have seen this cloud also at your place. Okay, this is a mixture of cloud. Okay, here you can see strong convective clouds here. Okay, and also part of it has risen, developed, grown up into high level cloud or the cirrus cloud. See, so you can see the irregular boundaries here, irregular boundaries. Okay, uh, but these have very well defined sharper boundaries. Okay, and this cloud, of course, is in a growing phase. All right. So in this figure, we show the growing cumulus cloud in the foreground. Okay, this is a growing cumulus cloud in the foreground with well-defined boundaries, contain primarily small droplets. Okay, because this is still has not, its top has not grown too high. So most of the hydrometeors inside this cloud consist of small droplets. Okay, the higher cloud behind with fuzzy boundaries, that is this cloud. they got a fuzzy boundary, okay, irregular shaped boundary, is an older glaciated cloud full of ice crystals. This cloud is slightly older than this cloud, and so therefore they got a glaciated cloud full of ice crystals. Okay. Now, another factor that contributes to the difference in appearance of ice and water clouds is the lower equilibrium vapor pressure of our ice than our water at the same temperature. This we already discussed today. Okay, the water vapor pressure or saturation water vapor pressure, our ice is lower than that of the liquid water. Okay, this allowed ice particles to migrate for greater distances than droplets into the non-saturated air surrounding a cloud before they evaporate. All right. For the same reason, ice particles that are large enough to fall out of a cloud can survive great distances before evaporating completely, even if the ambient air is subsaturated with respect to ice. Okay, and that's precisely the reason because the supersaturation of our ice is less than compared to our the liquid water. Okay, ice particles will grow in air that is subsaturated with respect to water, provided that it is supersaturated with respect to ice, and that's true. Okay, the trails of ice crystals so produced are called the fall streaks, or virga, as we had seen in the previous diagram. They are called the fall streaks or virga. They are the trails of ice crystals, okay, which are falling from the anvil of the cumulonimbus cloud, mostly in the frozen form. But as they pass through the atmosphere, they get evaporated, and you never see them reaching the ground. Okay, they are virga. Okay, now this figure 28 shows the fall streaks. Okay, see the fall streaks. Streaks of this is typical high cloud, the cirrus cloud. Now you must have seen this kind of clouds also at your place. Okay, see the fall streaks. Okay, and this is a typical cirrus, high level cirrus cloud. And this consists of ice crystals from cirrus clouds. The characteristics curved shaped fall streaks. See, they are like a curve shaped. Okay, indicates that the wind speed was increasing from left to the right with increasing altitude. Okay, as you go higher and higher in the atmosphere, the wind speed is increasing, and that is also true in most of the cases. Okay, the factors that control the mass growth rate of an ice crystal by deposition from the vapor phase are similar to those that control the growth of a droplet by condensation. Okay, by condensation. However, the problem is more complicated because ice crystals are not spherical, and therefore points of equal vapor density do not lie on a sphere centered on the crystals as they do for a droplet. Although mechanism is similar to the formation of the droplet, but they are not identical because the shape of the ice may not be spherical, unlike the liquid water. Okay, for a special case of a spherical ice, particle of radius r, we can write by analogy. I mean, if you remember, we had discussed the growth of the cloud liquid water, their growth of the mass of the cloud liquid water, and also the growth of their radius, okay, in time. And if we take the analogy of that, we can also write a similar equation mathematically for the growth of the ice particles, okay, of radius r, which can be written as dm by dt equal to 4 pi r d times rho v at infinity minus rho v c, okay, where m is the mass of the ice particle, okay, m is the mass of the ice particle, vc is the density of the vapor just adjacent to the surface of the ice crystal, okay. This d is the diffusion coefficient of water vapor in air, and this is the density of water vapor at a large distance, say indicated by infinity minus density of the vapor just adjacent to the surface of the crystal. Okay, and R here indicates the radius of the droplet. Okay, rho v is the density of the water vapor at distance x, which is greater than the radius of the droplet. M is the mass of the droplet. Okay, so ice crystals growing by vapor deposition in mixed clouds increase in mass most rapidly at temperatures around 14 degrees centigrade. Okay, but the majority of ice particles in clouds are irregular in shape and sometimes referred to as junk ice. Okay, they are referred to as junk ice because they are irregular in shape. And there are many types of shapes they take. They form in many shapes, as we shall see later on in the class today. Laboratory studies show that under appropriate conditions, ice crystals that grow from the vapor phase can assume a variety of regular shapes or habits that are either plate-like or column-like. No, I said in the cloud chamber, we can study the cloud microphysics, the formation of ice crystals, and we can visualize those ice crystals through a microscope because they are so small in size, in terms of the microns. Their radius, we have discussed earlier, is in terms of the microns, that is 10 to the power minus 4 centimeter. Okay, so we have to see such kind of ice crystals only through a microscope. But if we see through the microscope, we can find very interesting shapes of such ice crystals. Okay, the simplest plate-like crystals are plain hexagonal plates as shown in this diagram. Okay, as shown in, see these are the different shapes and sizes of the ice crystals which form inside the cloud, especially the cirrus cloud. And also such kind of crystals have been produced in the cloud chamber in the laboratory and visualized through the microscope. And you can see that this is like a hexagon, small hexagon. This is like a big hexagon shape crystal. Okay, this is like a cylindrical shape. Okay, this is like a cylindrical. All right, like a column. Okay, column crystals of solid ice, and the hexagonal cross section. In the side, they may look like a hexagonal cross section, but they are like a solid cylinder here, right? Now look at this crystal. This is another interesting formation of the crystal. This is yet another form of the ice crystal, and yet another form of the ice crystal. So the ice crystals can form in several sizes and also in several shapes, depending upon the supersaturation, depending on the temperature, depending on the water, and depending on the wind, etc., etc. Okay. This figure 28 shows ice crystals grown from the vapor phase. In A, we see the hexagonal form. In the B, we see like a column or a cylindrical form. In C is called the dendrite. This form we call the dendrite shape of the ice crystal. And this is the sector plate. In D, it is called the sector plate. Okay. The study of the growth of ice crystals from the vapor phase under controlled conditions in the laboratory and observations in natural clouds have shown that basic habit of an ice crystal is determined by the temperature at which it grows. Okay, and the next slide, we shall see the slide in which we shall show the different shapes of ice crystals which form at different temperature. Okay. If the ice crystals are sufficiently large to have significant fall speeds, they will be ventilated by the airflow. Okay, the ventilation of an ice crystal has a similar effect on embellishing the crystal habit as does the increasing the supersaturation. All right. At low supersaturations, the crystal growth depends on the presence of molecular effect. As water saturation is approached, surface nucleation occurs near the crystal edge and layers of ice spread toward the crystal interior. Okay, and in this table, as I said, you can see how different shapes of ice crystals form at different temperature and at different supersaturation. Okay, this is the temperature ranging from 0 to minus 2.5, minus 3, minus 3.5 to 7.5, and so on, up to minus 40 to minus 60 degrees centigrade temperature. Okay, for different temperature. Now, the safe or the basic habit of the crystals like plate-like, transition, column-like, transition, plate-like, column-like, etc. Okay, and for different supersaturation, like now when the supersaturation is between ice and the water, then it's safe for this temperature can become like a hexagonal plate. Now when temperature is like this, then it can become a quick X shape. For this range of temperature, it is look like a column. Again for this it is a transition phase, so eqi-x for this range plates and multiple habits, and here solid columns of rosettes below minus 41 degrees centigrade. And similarly, when it is near to or greater than the water saturation, again you see the formation of dendrites. Dendrites now at temperatures ranging from minus 1 to minus 2 degree, then eqi-x needles ranging from minus 4 to minus 6, hollow columns, eqi-x scrolls and sector plates, dendrites, sector plates, etc. Hollow columns, rosettes. Okay, so this is how the different shapes of ice crystals form at different temperature range and different ranges of saturation. Okay, with respect to water and with respect to the ice. All right. So in the last diagram, when you saw in a very interesting shape of the ice crystal, it was like a dendrite. Okay, like this one. This is a dendrite shape. Okay, and this shape of the ice crystals form at temperatures minus 1 to minus 2 degrees centigrade when it is near to or greater than the water saturation. All right. Now, the next process of the growth of ice crystals is by riming. Okay, riming. Even the hailstones which form inside the clouds of thunderstorms, that is again very complex mechanism for that. Because inside a severe thunderstorm, there is a strong updrafts and downdrafts, in which the ice crystals, after they form, they get circulated. They keep circulating, from top to the bottom of the cloud because of the strong updrafts and downdrafts. And during the process of their circulation, upward and downward motion, they keep growing. Okay, and adding more and more layers of the ice particles uh, through riming. Okay, the hailstones form and grow in size through riming. Okay, in a mixed cloud, ice particles can increase in mass by colliding with supercooled droplets that then freeze in onto them. Okay, this process is referred to as growth by riming. Riming, that means they will freeze as soon as they come into contact with a cold object, like we discussed yesterday, aircraft icing. Okay, now sometimes ice can form on the body of the aircraft when it is flying at a high altitude. Okay, in favorable situation, and that can be a aviation hazard because it will increase the weight of the aircraft and can cause accident. Okay, so this process of formation of the ice through contact with the cold surface is called the riming. Okay, growth of ice by riming. It leads to the formation of various rimed structures. Some examples are shown in figure 29. I think this is the figure 29. Okay, now we can see different shapes of ice crystals formed by riming. Okay, formed by the riming. Okay, it shows that in here is a lightly rhymed needle. It's like a needle but lightly rhymed. Okay. In this diagram, it shows rhymed column. Okay, rhymed column. In this diagram, it shows rhymed plate. Okay, so a rhymed plate. And in this diagram, it shows rhymed settler. Okay, and in this diagram, it shows a spherical grapple. Okay, shows a grapple form. And in this diagram, it shows a conical grapple. This looks like a spherical grapple. This looks like a conical grapple. So different size and shapes of the ice crystals form because of the rhyming. Okay, rhyming process, that is water vapor is coming into contact with a very cold object. Okay. When rhyming proceeds beyond a certain stage, it becomes difficult to discern the original shape of the ice crystals. The rhymed particles is then referred to as grapple. Okay. When it loses or it becomes very difficult to discern or recognize the original shape of the ice crystal, then we call it as grapple. Okay, grapple, as shown in these two diagrams. Okay, in these two figures, grapple. So you should know the differences between snow, ice, grapple, hail, etc. There are different forms of the hydrometeors which are present inside deep cumulonimbus clouds. Okay, hailstones represent an extreme case of growth of ice particles by rhyming. Okay, they form in vigorous convective clouds that have high liquid water contents. Right, the largest hailstones reported in USA is in Nebraska was 13.8 centimeter in diameter and weighed about 0.7 kilogram. Okay, such a heavy, just imagine almost like 1 kilogram weight. And you just imagine if such a heavy object falls on our head, what will happen? People can die. And if it falls on the window, glass windows of the cars, the windows are broken. Even sometimes glass windows of the house are broken because of the severe hailstorms, right? Because their size can be quite large, as large as 13.8 centimeter. Now, people have reported hailstones of even weighing about 1 kilogram or more sometimes, right? So they're very dangerous, very hazardous, and they form because of the rhyming process in strong updrafts and downdrafts inside a severe thunderstorm. Okay, if a thin section is cut from a hailstone and viewed in transmitted light, it is often seen to consist of alternate dark and light layers as shown in this figure. Okay, this figure is showing you a cross section cut from a hailstone. Okay, and you can see the alternate layers of dark and white. Okay, streaks inside the hailstones. Okay, the dark layers are opaque. The dark layers are opaque ice containing numerous small air bubbles. Okay, in these dark uh, layers, there are air bubbles which are almost like in a frozen state. Okay, and the light layers, these white layers, are clear, bubble-free ice. They are pure ice, whereas they are bubbled, and this contains the air bubbles. Clear ice is more likely to form when the hailstone is growing wet. Okay, clear ice is more likely to form when the hailstone is growing wet. Okay. Detailed examination of the orientation of the individual crystals within a hailstone, which can be seen when the hailstone is viewed between crossed polarizing filters. See inset. I mean, this diagram, inset diagram, showed after the detailed examination of the individual crystals within a hailstone. Okay, reveal that the hailstone was wet, okay, or wet growth of the hailstone occurred. Now, the third process of ice crystal growth inside the cold clouds is by aggregation. The process called aggregation. Okay, so now you have heard about deposition, you have got about rhyming, now you are going to study about the aggregation. Okay, similarly, there is sedimentation. The third mechanism by which ice particles grow in clouds is by colliding and aggregating with one another. When the ice crystals collide with each other, then they aggregate. Okay, and the growth of the ice crystals by that process is called growth by aggregation. Okay, ice particles can collide with each other provided their terminal fall speeds are different. Okay, and the terminal fall speed will be different when they are of different mass. Okay, different sizes. The terminal fall speed of an unrhymed cloud-like ice crystals increases as the length of the crystals increase. For example, the fall speeds of needles of 1 and 2 millimeter length are about 0.5 and 0.7 meter per second. So once they have different terminal fall speed, then they can collide. Okay, the one which is coming down faster will collide with the one which is coming down slower. In contrast, unrhymed plate-like ice crystals have terminal fall speeds that are virtually independent of the diameter. Okay, small size particles. Okay. The terminal fall speeds of rhymed crystals and grapple are strongly dependent on their degrees of rhyming and dimension. Okay. For example, grapple particles of 1 and 4 millimeter diameter have terminal fall speeds of about 1 and 2.5 meter per second, respectively. Okay. Consequently, the frequency of collisions of ice particles in clouds is enhanced greatly if some rhyming has taken place. What is the diagram? Okay, the second factor that influences growth by aggregation is whether two ice particles adhere when they collide. Okay, the probability of adhesion, okay, when they adhere, is determined primarily by two factors: the types of the ice particle and the temperature of that. Okay, the probability of the two ice crystals when they collide and probability of whether they will adhere or not depends on the temperature. Okay, the probability of two colliding crystals adhering increases with increasing temperature, with adhesion being particularly like above about 5 degrees centigrade, at which temperature ice surfaces become quite sticky. Okay, and so because they are sticky, so the crystals adhere to each other. Okay, some examples of ice particles aggregates are shown now in this diagram. Okay, now these crystals of ice have formed because of the aggregation and adhering of the ice crystals with each other because of the sticky nature of the ice crystals. Okay, above about temperature of 5 degrees centigrade. All right. So again, you can see here different shapes of the ice crystals. Okay, and this is again like a dendrite form. Okay, dendrite form of the ice crystals. So all such kinds of ice crystals occur or form in the high cirrus clouds. Okay. Now we shall discuss about the formation of precipitation in cold clouds. Okay. So are you ready to discuss, continue the class, or shall we continue this in the next class? Up to you. Shall we continue the class? Are you all there? I see 7 people are there. So shall we continue the class? Finish this part?
Yes, sir.
Continue. Okay? Everybody
Okay,
ready?
sir.
Okay. All right. So we continue. Okay, now we shall discuss the formation of precipitation in the cold clouds. Okay. Now, as early as 1789, you see, long ago, almost like 250 years ago, 250 years ago. Okay, scientist named Frank Lean suggested that much of what is rain, when it arrives at the surface of the earth, might have been snow when it began its descent. Okay, so that means there is the rain which we see at the ground many times now starts or originates as a ice crystal in the form of a frozen particle. This idea was not developed until the early part of the last century when Wagner in 1911 stated that ice particles would grow preferentially by deposition from the vapor phase in a mixed cloud. Okay, deposition from the vapor phase. Okay, like opposite to sublimation. Subsequently, another scientist called Bergeron, okay, Bergeron in 1933, and also Feinstein in 1938. They gave a theory which is very popular, well-known theory called Bergeron-Feinstein theory or Bergeron-Feinstein process for the development of precipitation in cold clouds. Okay, Bergeron-Feinstein process is a very important process, which many times also it is asked in the examination. Write a short note on Bergeron-Feinstein process. Okay, or what is Bergeron-Feinstein process? So they developed this idea in a more quantitative manner and indicated the importance of ice nuclei in the formation of the crystals. Okay, because Feinstein carried out his field studies in northwestern Europe. Okay, he was led to believe that all rain originates as ice. Okay, however, as discussed earlier, rain can also form in warm clouds. Okay, by the collision and coalescence mechanism. Right. I mean, Bergeron or Fenton belong to northwestern parts of Europe, where it's so cold temperature most of the time. So he believed that all rain occurs because of the ice or originates from the ice, but that may not be true. Okay, that may not be true for the warm clouds, as we had discussed earlier, where the water droplets can grow also by collision and coalescence mechanism, right? Calculations indicate that growth of ice crystals by deposition of vapor is not sufficiently fast to produce large raindrops. Now, as we have discussed already, okay? So simply by deposition, it is not sufficient. And so it has to have some kind of a presence of ice nuclei, as we have discussed earlier. Unlike growth by deposition, the growth rates of an ice particle by riming and aggregation increases as the ice particle increases in size. Okay. A simple calculation shows that a plate-like ice crystal, 1 millimeter in diameter, falling through a cloud with a liquid water content of 0.5 gram per cubic meter, could develop into a spherical grapple particle about 0.5 millimeter in radius in a few minutes. Quickly it can develop. Okay, a grapple particle of this size with a density of about 100 kilogram per cubic meter has a terminal fall speed of about 1 meter per second. Okay, 1 meter per second. All right, and would melt into a drop about 230 micron in radius. Okay, so once it melts, it can form a very big droplet of 230 micron radius. Okay, the radius of a snowflake can increase from 0.5 millimeter to 0.5 centimeter in about 30 minutes due to aggregation with ice crystals. Okay, provided that the ice content of the cloud is about 1 gram per cubic meter. Okay, ice content is 1 gram per cubic meter. In such cases, the snowflakes can increase from 0.5 millimeter to 0.5 centimeter in just 30 minutes time. Okay. An aggregated snow crystal with a radius of about 0.5 centimeter has a mass of about 3 milligram and a terminal fall speed of about 1 meter per second. 1 meter per second. Okay. So you can just imagine how strong is the terminal speed, 1 meter per second. Okay. Upon melting, a snow crystals of this mass would form a radius of about 1 millimeter in radius. So once this snow crystal of 3 milligram melts, now then it can form a raindrop of 1 millimeter in radius. We conclude from these calculations that growth of ice crystals, first by deposition from the vapor phase in mixed cloud and then by riming and other aggregation, can produce precipitation sized particles in reasonable time period, say about 40 minutes. And that's what we see in the nature, okay, in the reality. The Bergeron-Feinstein process, as I mentioned earlier, explains this phenomena. Okay, and this is a process of ice crystal growth that occurs in mixed phase clouds containing a mixture of supercooled water and ice in regions where the ambient vapor pressure falls between the saturation vapor pressure of water and the lower saturation vapor of ice. Okay, so that means this mechanism or this process or this theory tells us how the ice crystals can grow in a cloud at the expense of water vapor. Because the saturation vapor pressure of our ice is smaller than compared to the saturation vapor pressure of our liquid. So ice will quickly grow at the expense of the liquid water, right? And this process is called the Bergeron-Feinstein process, right? The role of ice phase in producing precipitation in cold clouds is demonstrated by radar observations. In the next slide, I will show you some observations from the radar. Okay, which shows the intensity of radar echoes reflected from the atmospheric targets. Okay, while the radar antenna was pointing vertically upward and clouds drifted over the radar. Okay, and this is the diagram. This is the diagram or result obtained from a radar which was pointing vertically upwards over through which a cloud passed through. Okay, and what you can see here is the height versus time of the radar echoes. Okay, these colors are showing you the echoes from the hydrometeors which are present in the cloud. Okay, hydrometeors in the form of ice crystals and also could be in the form of the liquid water. Okay, and as you can see, this dark line is the line called melting line. Okay, melting line, 0 degree centigrade ice thaw. And these colors which you see, they indicate the reflectivity, and this is the scale for that. Okay, this is a scale for that. The reflectivity, as you will study maybe more in the next semesters, are measured in terms of the decibel, hertz, okay, dBg, okay, dBg. So this figure shows the reflectivity, okay, or echo from a vertically pointing radar. The horizontal band of high reflectivity values in brown, this brown color, okay, high reflectivity, you can see 42, okay, 42 value, okay. The located just above height 2 kilometer, okay, is the melting band, okay. So here the melting level is at the altitude of 2 kilometer from the base of the cloud, okay, or it could be from this ground also, it can be from the ground, okay, because radar is measuring from the ground. The curved trails of relatively high reflectivity in yellow, these curved trails of yellow color emanating from the bright band are fall streaks of precipitation, some of which reach the ground, okay. They are the fall streaks of the precipitation. Okay, the horizontal band in brown, just above 2 kilometer height, was produced by the melting of ice particles. This is referred to as bright band. Okay, in the radar terminology, in the radar meteorology, this is known as bright band. Okay, this bright band. This is the band which forms at the melting level. Okay. The radar reflectivity high around the melting level, because while melting, ice crystals become coated with a film of water that increases their radar reflectivity greatly. Because the ice crystals, when they're melting, they're coated by a film of water, which increases the reflectivity very high. When the crystals are melted completely, they collapse into droplets, okay, and their terminal fall speeds increase so that concentration of particles is reduced. These changes result in a sharp decrease in radar reflectivity below the melting band. Okay, as you can see from this diagram, below this melting band, the radar reflectivity has decreased because the ice has melted. Okay, ice has melted, and there is a sharp decrease in the reflectivity. Okay, the concentration of particles, ice particles, have also reduced. Okay, below the melting level. Now, the sharp increase in particle fall speeds produced by melting is illustrated in another figure. Okay, in this figure, this is also you can say produced from the observations of the radar. Okay, uh, which showed the spectrum of fall speed. Okay, which is shown in the x-axis here. The fall speed is in meter per second, and this is the altitude in the vertical. Okay, 0.7 to 4 kilometer altitude in vertical, and you can see for different fall speeds how the particles, they vary according to the altitude. Okay, the spectrum of fall speeds of precipitation measured at different heights with a vertically pointing radar. At heights above 2.2 kilometer, above this height, the particles are ice with fall speeds centered around 2 meters per second. Okay, above this height, 2.2 kilometer, they are ice. Okay, at 2.2 kilometer, the particles are partially melted, and below 2.2 kilometer, they are raindrops. Okay, with fall speeds centered around 7 meters per second. Okay, majority of them have the fall speed of 7 meters per second. Okay, below 2.2 kilometers. So this part consists mostly of the raindrops, whereas this part consists most of the ice particles. See, the different shapes of the ice crystals which you have seen in the earlier diagram. Okay, as you have seen, that depends upon the temperature range and also the supersaturation. Okay, and that is also classified into different types. Okay, there are different types classified, and in the WMO, you might have heard about the WMO, has made the manual for this kind of precipitation, different types of precipitation. There is a manual made by WMO. Okay, so the growth of ice particles by deposition from the vapor phase, riming and aggregation leads to a very wide variety of solid precipitation particles. Okay, a relatively simple classification into 10 main types is shown in the next slide. Okay, and here you see that ice crystals of different shapes and sizes, which are indicated by different symbol. Okay, these are the graphic symbols which are used to represent the different shapes of the ice crystals. Okay, or you can say this table shows you the classification of solid precipitation, and they're categorized as F1, F2, F3, F4, and so on up to F10. So when such kind of solid precipitation is observed at any station, this kind of precipitation, as you know, can occur only in high latitudes, maybe in the mid latitudes also, in the Europe, or over the northern part of the, say, high latitudes. Also, sometimes they can occur over the mountain areas, high mountain areas. So, depending upon their shapes, they are plotted. I mean, you may be knowing that weather observations are plotted on weather charts, which are maps of the geographical region. And on that, these different symbols are plotted depending upon the types of precipitation. There is a symbol for the rain. If it is a rainfall, raindrops are occurring, then there is a different symbol for that. There is a solid circle, dark circle used for that raindrop. Then if it is a solid precipitation, then depending upon the shape and size, these are the graphical forms which are used for representing or indicating that at that station this kind of solid precipitation has occurred, or this kind of snowfall has occurred. Okay. Now, as I said, for the raindrops, if it is a rain, then we simply indicate by a dark circle. Okay. When it is a rainfall, then we indicate it by a dark circle like this one, solid dark circle. Okay. And these kind of things are plotted on the map of, say, suppose there is a world map, or they said our India, of course, only in the mountains, these see this kind of snowfall, like in Himachal Pradesh, Simla, or Uttarakhand, Jammu, Kashmir, etc. So in the weather charts, these kind of symbols are plotted. This is for the rainfall. This symbol is for the rainfall. Okay. So at any station when rainfall has occurred, then this kind of symbol is plotted. Okay. And similarly, when the snowfall is occurring, then depending upon the shape of the snowfall, these different graphical symbols are used to indicate that this kind of snowfall has occurred. Okay. So with this, we have completed today the microphysics of the cold clouds. Okay. Microphysics of the cold cloud. Now, in the syllabus, of course, for the microphysics of the cloud, only warm and cold clouds are there. There is no syllabus. I mean, in the syllabus, the weather modification, how the cloud seeding, etc., are done. That is not included in the syllabus. But no, it's a very interesting topic. Cloud seeding and weather modification are also very interesting topic. But I leave it to you. You can read yourself from the book. Okay, you can read from the book yourself about the weather modification. Okay, will that be okay, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the weather modification part, you can read the book yourself. And with this, we have completed the cloud microphysics of both warm cloud and the cold cloud as given in the syllabus. Okay. Now the last part which is left is the atmospheric electricity. Okay, atmospheric electricity, which we shall discuss in the next few classes, and certainly we shall complete the syllabus by next week. Okay, and as I said, I will give you the mail also, your first internal assessment, as we discussed in previous classes. We shall have it on, I think, next Saturday on 13th in the morning. Okay, it will be just 1 hour examination. Okay, and by that time, hopefully, I shall complete the atmospheric electricity also. So, the syllabus for the second internal assessment will be both cloud microphysics and the atmospheric electricity. Is that okay, all of you?
Okay, sir.
Right.
Okay, sir.
Good, very good. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
Sure.
Okay, and now I shall also stop the recording. Anyone has any question for today's class or for any other class?